This is Messiah Hill, and this is the scooter backflip. Oh, yeah. Woo.
Wait, Dad, do we have a podcast tonight?
Oh, yes. See, I'm going to be late.
Here, you're going to need this.
Thank you.
Hurry up.
Hey. Yo, what's up, senders? Hey, we are back with another episode, and this one, I cannot wait for you to meet this guest tonight. Her name is Brie, and she has been killing the Cat 3, Cat 2s, and knocking on the doors of the pros. So I can't wait to share her story tonight. She is an incredible human being who's been riding just for a short period of time, but the passion and the dedication she has to the sport is incredible. So I hope you guys ask questions, engage, and get to know who Brie is. But before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to all of you. And hey, this Saturday, if you're not doing anything and you want to come out and do something super fun, YT Mill is having the e-bike group ride. They're actually letting me guide the beginners out. So we taking a loop around Dog Park, and that starts at 10 o'clock, probably pedaling out at 10:30, back to the mill, and snacks and drinks will be provided. So hope you can join us on Saturday. This Saturday, there's also going to be an intermediate group that's going to be led by Tony Da Silva, the outsider, and then a advanced group who I don't know who the pro is that's going to be leading that. So stay tuned to that, but I hope you guys can all show up. And as always, Whole Shot Award is going out tonight. Drum roll, please. Whole Shot is going out to Trail Pimp. Trail Pimp, congratulations. You were on at 4:02 p.m., sir. My gosh, you've been waiting for a while. Welcome to the show. Mountain Bike Q&A, I see you out of Miami. What's up, Johnny, you and Lauren? Just got off the Peloton. He says, let's roll. He's been on for an hour. My goodness. MTB Raging, and also I saw Steph Batista in here kicking out all of the students so that he can join the podcast. I see Lauren in here. What's up, Lauren? MTB Nick says, what's good, people? And we got Chicken Sendies out of, I think Chicken Sendies, you're out of Chicago, I believe. He's saying, yo, I love it. Great to see everybody. Oh, Burrell Bikes. I did see a Burrell bike out on the trails. I think it was in the Palm Canyon Epic area. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure I saw one of your bikes out there, brother, which is super, super cool. All right, folks, without further ado, let's get our guest on. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Brie Aseltine. Yo, Brie.
Hello. Hey, Marge.
Hello, hello. Welcome to the Segment Podcast. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. I'm a fan. I've been watching your Instagram, watching your dedication. I was at Sky Park the day that you threw a suey over the session jump and took podium for Best Trick Award. I know you are also on the SpokeX bike team there for a while for racing. So we were both on that one. And I've just been following you, and I'm a big fan. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, no, this is exciting.
So, Brie, for the folks who don't know you, talk to them a little bit about who is Brie and how long have you been riding?
Awesome. So hello, everybody. I am really excited to be here. So I'm Brie. I am originally from upstate New York, but moved to California nearly 10 years ago. So I've been mostly in LA, but moved up to Big Bear Lake. It's been about a year and a month to the day, which is exciting. But yeah, I never really got into bikes until pretty recently, and I always focused on work and my career, and that's kind of what brought me to California. Yeah, that's how I ended up here.
Yeah. So you're from New York and then you came out to California. Were you a mountain biker back then in New York, or did you come out to California? You were just living the SoCal dream, or how did that work out?
Yeah, I graduated high school when I was 17 and I went to school for sound engineering in like right outside of Rochester
Okay.
and ended up doing that for like a year and taking the college year off and
Nice.
never went back. Um yeah, so I was just a workaholic because that was what was ingrained in me since the beginning of time. And I grew up in a really, really small town of like, I don't know, it's like 2,500 people or something in the middle of the
Holy cow.
woods.
That is small.
So we just,
2,500?
yeah,
Oh, wow,
it
that's
was
small.
tiny. Log cabin in the woods, no cell phone service. We had
Oh,
like
that
dial
sounds
up internet
actually
for,
sounds pretty nice.
yeah, it's very nice going back home. But, yeah, so I've always kind of been athletic and into sports, but I didn't have a like one thing that was something that I was really passionate about. It was just like my parents worked, so it was like after school, they could only pick us up at a certain time in the evening. So, when I moved to California, I was pretty like impressed with the amount of folks that really like paid attention to their health and fitness. So that's kind of what jump started me from like an education standpoint of like how to take care of yourself and eat well. And then in 2017, I like accidentally tripped into this really cool sport called canyoneering and started doing that for a while.
I've seen
Which,
pictures on your
yeah,
Instagram. I'll pull it out for the people that are live right here. There is canyoneering, and I actually had to ask Bree because I had never heard of canyoneering until she brought it up. Here's one of the shots of you canyoneering. So what is canyoneering?
so canyoneering is kind of a lot of things all at once. And I like to describe it as kind of like the opposite of climbing. So we typically like hike up the mountains or hike up the waterfall, and then rig your rope, whether it's already bolted or you're trying to ghost the area and leave no trace. So you're building like retrievable anchors and stuff and just rappelling down, big waterfalls or big walls. But every canyon's different when you're traveling around. Like if you go to Utah, you get a lot of the slot canyons, and in Southern California, unfortunately, they're a little smaller, so we call them ditches. But but it's so much fun because there's a lot of like hiking, there's a lot of problem solving and route finding, and sometimes your anchor isn't there and the beta isn't accurate, so you kind of have to figure it out as you go. So yeah, this particular canyon is in the San Diego area, and it's never flowing, but it just so happened to be one of those years where we got a ton of rain. And this one had a really, really large like free hang. So once you get past a certain point, you're just free hanging as you make your way down. And I think it's 150 feet free hang, maybe,
Whoa, whoa,
with the water
whoa.
pumping next to you. So
Wow.
it's a little spooky, but a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
yeah, my goodness. So you are definitely adventurous, and I remember when you said you did canyoneering, you kind of fell into it. You just kind of went. You were one of the only women that kind of went with
No,
this crew, or
yeah, so it was really funny. It was Memorial Day weekend, and um, a couple of my girlfriends were like, "Hey, do you wanna go canyoneering?" I'm like, "I don't know what that is, but I'm down." So after it was like a Thursday or a Friday after work, we literally just like packed up and drove to Utah. And this is actually pretty funny and kind of a special story because it was like foreshadowing into my mountain biking life. But when we made it to Utah, it was 3 o'clock in the morning.
good grief.
And we ended up meeting a couple guys who were going to kind of show us the ropes, no pun intended. And it was so funny because one of my girlfriends like goes up to one of the guys and is like, "Oh, I'm so glad to finally meet you." And I was like, "Wait a minute.
Yeah.
It's 3 a.m. in the middle of nowhere and we have no cell phone service and we don't know who these people are." But
You tricked me.
It was really funny, because if we fast forward, I don't know, 3-ish years, that camping site was the same exact camping site as Old Site in Virgin, where I go ride bikes and,
Oh,
where we
wow.
stay for a Red Bull Rampage. So,
Oh,
it
wow.
was really, really special the first time I had gone there, and I was like, "Oh my goodness," like, this was the first time I went canyoneering because we would go canyoneering in Zion. So, yeah, it's a very special moment for me now because, like I said, it was that foreshadowing moment into, my future life, which was cool, so
Yeah, so you accidentally fall upon this, and it turns out that some of the areas that you were canyoneering are some of the areas now that you still go back to for mountain biking. So you're canyoneering, you're digging this adventure. How did you go from rappelling down waterfalls with a 150-foot overhang to sending a big suey jump over the session jump at at Sky Park and snow summits? All this stuff. Like, how did you get into the mountain biking scene then?
I gotta say, it may be a typical girl story, but, so when I was on one of these canyoneering adventures, I did meet somebody, and, we started dating for a while, and, he was into mountain biking, and at the time, I was, like, really not into it. I was, like, I don't know if you've heard of Katie Burrell, but it was very much like her videos on Instagram, that she kind of post pretty frequently, but I didn't like it. I was scared all the time. I was nervous. He was always so much faster than me, and I could never keep up. So I was like, this isn't for me. But eventually he convinced me to buy a frame. And so my first bike was a 2018 Santa Cruz Bronson that I got in 2019. So it was one of like the older frames. And I had that bike and I didn't really ride it that much. I think we did a couple trips, but I mean, I was like walking stuff at Lake Hodges. Like I was terrified.
Wow.
So
That
I
seems
eventually
crazy. That seems crazy from the pictures that we see today. So
I know. And unfortunately, we ended up splitting ties and I had this beautiful bike just sitting there that I put a lot of money into. And I'm like, you know what? I gotta ride this thing. So I think that, yeah, I went to Snow Summit Bike Park by myself, and I got my bike, and I'm like geared up and going up the lift, and I run into some random person that we take the lift together, and I was trying to be all cool, like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna start out in the greens to warm up, but I was terrified to go on the green.
yeah,
Um, but after that, I made great friends with these folks, and they really pushed me they made mountain biking fun for me, and
nice.
it was that year. So that I think I did that in like 2020. I think it was right around my 30th birthday.
Wow.
And
That's like right when COVID was starting to pop out.
yeah, it was like deep COVID. And I entered in my first race. I think that was in like June, July, and then I entered my first beginner race in August, and I raced downhill at Snow Summit on Miracle Mile.
Okay, yeah.
Got third place out of 3 women. Really
Dang.
brought up the rear, but it was just that feeling that I got that really was like, "Oh man, this is really cool. Like I want to keep doing this." And it was that one thing that I really was just like immediately passionate about, and I'm so thankful for those random people that I met that day who are still my friends, you know, right now, and I'm really thankful for that.
Bree, that's cool. I mean, I know when I don't get to go to Summit as much as I like to. I think I've only been there 3 times, and when I'm in the parking lot, I'm nervous, and I have friends on the mountain, and I've got a friend usually in the car with me who's like, "Alright, let's go." I couldn't imagine how it must have felt to just decide to go solo. Now you're very adventurous. Did you feel very excited about it, or were you just pushing yourself, or did someone tell you to go, or how did that
I just pushed through it. And I was in my head, like I knew I wasn't going to hit the blues or anything. And I had been there before, so I kind of knew what to expect. But I was riding Going Green and terrified. I think I walked parts of Going Green the first time I had gone.
Wow.
And I remember I was like pushed into going down Party Wave, and I remember I just like
Oh God.
I had to stop, and I just started crying on the side of the trail because I was so scared.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, it was pretty funny. And then that off season, I guess I didn't really know it was an off season at the time because I was living in San Diego, and I just started pedaling. I just started riding Ted Williams, and um, I remember like I just had learned how to use a front brake, like because I never used it before. So I learned at Ted's how to use front brake,
Oh my gosh.
and
That's a place to learn.
um, yeah, so it was just like riding PQ and TEDs all the time, and just kind of pedaling after work. Like I remember like saying, "Hey Google, like when's the sunset?" and just like racing to get somewhere before the sunset, just to get some pedaling in. And then um, had another race season in 2021, and I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Like I knew in my heart downhill was my passion, and um, I just got in with SpokeX, and they were going to a lot of the local enduro trails races. So I started. I think in 2021 I did 14 races, most of which were enduro, and I was getting like third and fourth
Dang.
place in Cat 2.
Dang.
In enduro, and it wasn't my thing. But then in June is when downhill started picking up, and I 2021. Yeah, I moved up to Cat 1 halfway through 2021. Ended up doing really well in downhill, and basically like winning, getting first, second place overalls in downhill, just local stuff. And then in 2022 is when I really told myself that I was going to kind of expand into more national level events. And that's what I did starting this time last year.
Wow. Dang, Brie. Smashing the Cat 3, 2, and 1. Falling in love with DH. And you did enduro. You did a ton of races in enduro with SpokeX. I love those guys, Hunter
They're
and
the best.
Tony. Yeah, they're so
Oh,
fun.
they're the best. Tony is the ultimate hype man. I mean, he, no matter what, just always has your back, and he's just an incredible person. So I'm so thankful to have him around too.
Yes, I love his post. If you guys haven't had a chance, follow Tony. It's his handle. Is it Tony Rodriguez or
It's
uh,
Life Be Good, something. I don't remember. I'll have to look it up.
yes,
But
but every race, before each race, he goes live and he's like, he's like, love life, and I just want to share with you all. It's almost like a preacher, and you just get sucked into it. It's
yeah.
so good. So tell me, like, okay, you were doing enduro, and you knew that wasn't quite your jam. But
Hmm.
what was it about the DH that really grabbed a hold of you? How did you know that DH was your jam?
Hmm. That's a great question. I think because I've always been like an adrenaline junkie, so I think I was just attracted to just the fact that it's more dangerous. But at the time too, like the enduro races here aren't like, the big BME enduro races, which are truly like downhill segments. But I also feel like my fitness at the time was not great. So doing 5 stages pedaling uphill just does not sound attractive to me.
Right.
So I just wanted to like not pedal and just go down as fast as I could. Um, so yeah, I ended up making some pretty big changes to really focus on kind of getting myself out there. And I knew I was doing well locally, and there just isn't a lot of ladies out there competition wise in the Cat 1 class. So I thought that, going to the national level was the next best step, but
Yeah.
it was also very wide a big awakening for me because it's just so different than anything here. And yeah, so
Yeah, and on top of that, I remember because I'm on the SpokeX team chat, and I remember you had an injury for one of those nationals, and you raced anyway. Can you share with folks about that? That was pretty. I thought that was pretty beast mode. That was the first time I looked at you, and I was like, "Damn."
yeah. Yeah, so the last national race of the season, which was pretty recent in September, was the Fox US Open. And it typically had been here in Big Bear, but with COVID and then the fires next year, unfortunately, we couldn't have it at Snow Summit. But went to Killington, Vermont, and raced dual slalom and downhill. And in my downhill qualifying run, I did go down because, it was such a fun track, and it was kind of like, it wasn't super steep, but it was really fast tech. And there were like 4 or 5 tree sections, but they all looked the same when you were going into it. So it was really hard to remember,
Oh man.
where your entry was and your transition points were. So one of them I just didn't set up early enough, and I ended up slipping on a route and kind of just like fell kind of hard and fast and like punched the ground with my hand. And I mean, it really, the doctors still really haven't figured out what's going on with it. And I just kind of got sick of going to the specialist all the time. But it looked very much like a boxer's fracture. And you can even see my hand, my knuckles don't look right.
Oh yeah, the ring finger is kind of more
It's like,
indented down. Yeah.
it's like very dropped. But whatever. No pain, and it like
No pain's
gets
good.
stuck. But yeah, I was like, you know what? Like we had podium for dual slalom that night right after qualifying because and it ended up getting too late to have it that same night. And I miraculously won the dual slalom competition, so that was pretty sick. But yeah, I got on the podium for that, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, your hand is broken." And I'm like, "I don't know. We'll see." And the medics at Killington, Vermont, shout out to you guys. I wish I remembered your names. I remember they were J names, but I feel like most medics would be like, "Oh, you got to go to the hospital now." But they were so cool with like taping me up, and I couldn't squeeze the handlebar at all. So
Good
they
God.
put like cotton underneath my fingers. So if I did squeeze, I wasn't squeezing the bar, I was squeezing the cotton. So I was holding on basically with my middle finger and my pointer finger on the brake. Um, and then, yeah, I just decided to run finals with it. And I was like, look, it's the last race of the year. I'm across the country. If I'm going to get hurt, now's the time to do it. So I made the decision to push through it. And it wasn't, I was bummed because, I obviously wanted to get top 3, but I ended up taking 4th. So I was
Damn.
pretty proud of myself.
That's pretty amazing that you raced. I remember the morning that you sent this picture to us all. Your hand is completely taped up. You're like, I think it's broken, but I'm racing anyways. I
Yeah.
remember texting you back like, you got this. Good,
Yeah.
good luck. I know you can do it. And then, man, incredible, incredible. Now, wasn't like a piece of your bone sticking out?
It looked like it. I've been to so many doctors and they all said it's not broken, but they're all questioning it. They think that I guess there's like a sheath that holds like all the tendons in place. They think that tore, so it's not holding everything in place, which is why my fingers dropped. They also said that my pinky had been broken at some point, so it was already disformed. So then I had randomly gone to this. I had some friends in town from Detroit, and we ended up going to this. It was just like a nice little dinner party, I guess. And one of our friends is a nurse at a really prestigious hospital in LA, and there were all surgeons there. And they immediately like looked at my hand. They're like, "Oh, you got trigger finger. That's like a 20-minute surgery and you'll be good to go." So
Oh, wow. Maybe they got it. Maybe they called it. But
maybe, yeah.
but no pain. You don't have to get cut, right? Or maybe you
No,
do.
I'm just gonna deal with it. I mean, it looks weird, but again, I'm in no pain. So
Yeah. So, I mean, that explains a lot. When we're looking at your Instagram and considering that you've been on the bike for a little over 2 years now and
mhm.
you're racing Cat 1, um, that's just insane. There your podium, you're like no stranger to the podium. And now I've seen you doing a bunch of like free riding. You're at Summit. I know there was a question about Summit in there. This is going to be a reel, but right here is you throwing out a one-hander. Is that at Muscle Beach?
Yeah. Yep. That's
Sick.
Muscle Beach, Snow Summit, Tombstone. Um, that jump had like scared me for so long, and I finally got comfortable on it this past year and started throwing chicks on it. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. Look at it. Sending it. Dang.
Oh
So,
yeah, that was the first time I did like sea crab, T-bogs.
wow. Now, how, because I've been riding for 2 years and I'm afraid to take my hands off the handlebars.
It's so mental. It's just mental. I can't. Oh man. I love this because going back, like I'll be honest, I've not the person that's just whatever, let's just do it, send it, don't think about it. Like I'm not that person. I will be very honest that I am inherently cautious. And mountain bikes was one of those things that has really pushed me through that moment of fear and everything that I do, whether it's my career or it's
Nice.
just a life thing or if it's on the bike. And I don't know who said it, but the one thing that really resonates me with anything that I do is if you can't beat the fear, do it scared. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people, especially when, you know I'm in my 30s now, and, I talk to a lot of ladies who are always asking, like, "How are you so fearless in your 30? Aren't you scared of getting hurt?" And, it's one of those things that you just have to kinda train your mind about, and, um, other ladies that are kinda going through something similar or anybody that's going through something similar, it's just like, what fear is present and it's there, but you don't have to let it stop you from doing that thing. And
Yes.
if you know you have the skill and you know that you can do it, and at that point, it's like when you start getting mad at yourself because you know you can do it, but you're just not doing it.
Right.
That's the point where you just have to do it because and it's okay if you're scared. You just gotta do it when you're
Yeah.
scared because that's where you kinda, like, break through that plateau, and that feeling of overcoming something like that is just what is a huge motivator for me, and, um, I love, like, supporting other people who are going through something similar. So when it came to starting to do tricks, um, I mean, I just started I think it was June. I, like, wrote down the date, like, the first time. I think it was, like, June 9th or something was the first time, and, I was riding with a group of friends who are extremely talented on a bike, and I just started, like, opening up my like, holding the bar or hand on the bar, but just opening up my palm, and
Uh-huh.
then eventually, like, taking it off, and I was like, "Wait a minute, this is so much easier than you'd think." So then I just kept going out further and further, and then, I started to do, like, seat grabs because I could get my right arm off really well, so I started doing seat grabs, and I started doing T-bogs. I'm like, "Okay, today's the day I'm gonna do a no-hander," and
Dang.
my friend was like, "Have you ever taken your left hand off the bars?" And I was like, "No, no, I haven't." So I had to practice that a few times because that's the scary one for me since your front brake's right there, and if you accidentally, like, put your
Come
hand
back
back
and
and
grab
grab
it.
the front brake, you're
Yes.
just it's all over.
Yeah. Dirt sample.
Yes. So, yeah, eventually I just started taking both off, and the more you do it, you just like kind of go a little bit further, and you realize how much time you have in the air, and um, that's kind of how it started. And there's still a lot of cleaning up I have to do on my tricks, but it's cool to focus on it.
That's impressive. Are you thinking that is there going to be a version of Brie that will do more like free ride? Do you think in DH, or is the free ride kind of just playing around in between seasons? And
So, free ride is something that's very new to me. Um, because again, like I am that cautious type, right? So like I love walking the trails and hiking and knowing what to expect and knowing what features are coming up. And I'm always very cautious on new trails because I want to learn it first before I go like full pin. But yeah, free riding is really cool because you have to trust yourself a lot more and you have to make decisions on the fly because you never really know what you're going to run into. So it's been a really cool experience, kind of breaking through some mental things that I have stuck through. And I'm not as fast free riding, just inherently. I'm just not knowing what's coming up. But been traveling to Utah a bit and doing a lot of hiking. But on top of that, too, I don't have a trail bike anymore. My trail bike was stolen in April last year.
oh no, that's right.
So I only have my downhill bike right now, and I ride a Santa Cruz V10, and I love it. And it's funny because I, I, yeah. So this time last year, my first race of the season was Tennessee National. There she is,
Pretty.
that poor babe. Yep,
Now she was
that's the
only
one.
5 days old when this was
Mhm.
stolen.
Yep.
Oh man, I can still see it in your face, Brie. You're like, damn.
That is a Santa Cruz Mega Tower Fry's House Edition. They only made 100 in the globe. I was very
Whoa.
fortunate enough to get one. Um, so yes, I had the frame for a bit as I was starting to get the pieces together, and I had some amazing folks that kind of supported the build. Had brand new WeAre1 Union wheels on there, and I had their cockpit, ODI grips, Fox suspension, full XTR, everything,
Mm,
and finally got it built. And that's an interesting story because at that point I had just bought my V10. So it was the first time I actually had a real downhill bike, but I was on my way to Sea Otter. And if anybody knows, Sea Otter downhill is not real downhill. So you do not bring a downhill bike to the Sea Otter Classic.
you
And so,
overbiked a little bit.
yeah, even this was a lot for that. But yeah, so I rode it in practice on like Saturday, and then I rode it on the race on Sunday. And that night it was stolen.
At
So
the
it had,
hotel or at the course?
so it was stolen. So I was staying with some longtime friends that were actually originally from New York, and they live in like Pacific Grove, which is the fanciest place in Monterey. If you can imagine Monterey, California being any more fancier.
Right.
But it was on like a really small road and you couldn't see it from the street. And, it was like fenced around, and the driveway was like downhill and off camber. And I drive a big SUV. So I typically stand on my cooler to like grab my bike up and down. And, um, I couldn't even reach it just because the driveway was so weird. So I was like, like I'm not too worried about it. And
Yeah.
you guys, like when it's
Yeah.
safe, where it feels very safe to keep your
Right.
bike out.
Monterey, I mean, Pacific
Yes.
Grove off the beaten path, like super
Mhm.
safe.
Yeah, so I think the conclusion that I came to myself in my brain is that someone had followed me knowing what it was and just waited
Oh,
for a weak moment and they got it.
oh man.
Yeah.
And I think one of the questions that you got leading up to the podcast was, had they ever found that bike anywhere?
No. Well, no. So on Mother's Day, I got a phone call saying that it was spotted on a blue Prius in Monterey.
Oh,
So if you're out there, I
we
will
got
find
you,
you. No,
Blue
just kidding.
Prius. We
But,
got you.
unfortunately, the police didn't find it, and then, very recently, maybe, like, a couple months ago, I got a random message from someone on Instagram, someone that doesn't even follow me, and they're like, "Hey, like, there's this guy that is selling bikes, and there's a pink Santa Cruz, and I think it's yours." And I'm like, "Well,
Whoa.
did you get a picture? Did you get anything?" And he's like, "No." So that was at like the Oakland like flea market or something. So I called the police again, and they didn't get back to me. So
Oh,
I'm keeping a positive mindset, and if it's meant to be back in my house, my possession, it'll
yeah.
come back. But it was a very hard lesson that I had learned. So I have been primarily riding the V10. And since I live up in Big Bear now, and there she is, beauty. Yeah, since I live up here now and it's all snowy in the winter and the off season, I've just been biking everywhere and training during the week, CrossFit, and trying to get stronger.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So you moved to Big Bear. Not only is it just a beautiful place, but your sole one of the main sole reasons is to be up there for the bikes, for racing, for what you do. That's a huge commitment. And you get up there and then you start now you're putting in strength training into your routine now. Is that right?
Yeah, so if we go back to 2020, it's 2023, so my mind is all like messed up. So 2021 is when I did those 14 races, moved up to Cat 1 at the end of 2021. Um, and then 2022 is when I like planned out all my national level races. So Tennessee National, I did Seattle National Championships in Winter Park, Colorado. Fox US Open. I did the local stuff here, did the straight acres, dual slalom, things like that. Um, and it was so funny because last in 2022, like I didn't really do any training outside of just pedaling around on the bike, riding the bike park, and I had done pretty well. So it actually almost a year ago, it'll be a year and a couple of weeks, I ended up giving up alcohol. And I gave up alcohol because I, was really burned out on that 2021 season. And, we were just, going out all the time. We lived in Encinitas, so it's a very like
Oh
social
yeah.
place.
I love
And
love North County, San Diego.
yes, so I had a lot of distractions, and we were going out, and the drinking was, something that has always been a part of my life since, we were hiding it from our parents, and um, I never thought, it was a problem or anything. And I just like that, it was 4 months, and I hadn't been riding my bike between the end of the season in 2021 to January 2022.
Oh, just caught
And
up in the party scene at that
just
time?
wasn't focused and burned out on bikes. And I like had I honestly, I kind of had a big ego after that, and I was like, oh, like I could do anything, like and I moved up to Big Bear to really focus on bikes and train at elevation. But even the first month here in January last year, like, I was meeting people and, drinking a lot here and just having one with dinner and then the old fashions before bed and rinse and repeat like nearly every day. And I went to Tennessee to ride Windrock Bike Park because that's where the Tennessee National is in March. And I went there in February just to kind of get back into it. And I still had my 150 mil Bronson, and that was the rude awakening moment for me. I was very overwhelmed. It felt like I was in over my head. I had never ridden anything that was so off camber, that was so steep, that was so
Mm.
rooty, and like the complete opposite of what we have in Southern California. And I remember we rode 5 days there, and And then on the last night I was there, we were in Nashville. And of course, in Nashville, you definitely do not stay sober. So
Yeah.
we were just drinking a bunch, and I had never felt worse in my life. And I had to pack up my little Bronson in the bike bag at like 5 a.m. just to try to make my flight. And
Oh my gosh.
I was so hungover. And, you know, once you hit 30, like hangovers hit you a little bit different.
Yeah, it lasts a little longer.
Lasts a little longer. But I was getting so mad at myself. And like, I came to a moment where I was like, I thought I could pick up where I left off on the bike. I felt like I had to relearn how to ride a bike. I
Wow.
was so down on myself. I was so scared, but I made these commitments in my mind already. And that was the last time that I had a sip of alcohol. And
Wow.
since then, you know, it was only supposed to be 2 weeks. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to stay no drinking for 2 weeks until the Tennessee National. And again, that even though I was, you know, you always think that you can take, oh, all I need is 2 weeks to like no
Yeah.
drinking, then I'll be like in my prime. But
Yeah.
no, like I didn't perform very well in Tennessee National, and it was just terrifying. And in that race, that if you guys follow that series, we only could get our qualifying runs in because there was a really big random freak snowstorm that came in. So we didn't even do finals. And for me,
Wow.
that was a blessing in disguise, because I don't even know how I could have done another run on that track, like anywhere near the race pace, because it was so terrifying to me at that time. But that was just the motivator. Like I realized like how grossly I had been messing up in my life, and um, just wanted to kind of start like making the right decisions, because bikes was the first and only thing that I loved more than, you know, drinking. And it's been the absolute most incredible, best year of my entire life cutting out alcohol. I mean, on the bike, off the bike, and everything that I'm doing, the clarity is mind-blowing, and I'm really truly feeling like I learned who I am for the first time in my life this past year. So it's been pretty incredible.
That's incredible, Bree. And kudos to you for acknowledging that before it became something to you were forced into stopping to drink, you know? You saw it. There was something in you that made you say, I'm gonna take 2 weeks off. What was it that packing up in the middle of the night, trying to make that flight and going, what am I doing? Was that the kind of lucid point or was it something else?
There were a couple more days like before that where, you know, I'd go out on a Friday and then I'd be in bed all weekend, because like the 2-day hangovers, and just like
Totally.
I didn't like it. It was just I'm not one to kind of like dwell and complain. Like if there's something in my life that isn't working for me, I have to change it. And I noticed, you know, leading up to that moment, it was like, how can I call myself an athlete when I'm doing this to my body? I'm waking up mad at myself. I don't like the way that I look. I don't like the way I'm performing. And it was just a moment where I'm like sick of complaining, and I need
Yeah.
to make a change, and I need to own this. And everything in life is a choice. And I chose myself, and I chose bikes, and everything in my life has been better. The relationships I have with people, and the folks at work, and myself is just mind blowing. It's mind blowing. And there's nothing that I know of that I would ever trade for another drink, because it's just the progress has been incredible.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm so glad you could share that on the show. That is huge and inspiring to so many people. And also, now that you don't have the alcohol, we see this going on with you now. This is you getting down. So, this is kind of a secret weapon going into the next season, huh?
Yeah. So, you know, now that I have this like newfound motivation and dedication to myself, and I'm more disciplined with myself now, I've been really focused on my training, and since it is snowy up here, and I can't ride as much as I've been wanting to, I've been focusing on like my strength and my baseline fitness. And obviously up here we're at 6,800 feet elevation where I live, so it's been great training at elevation and getting stronger. And I had never worked out in my previous race season, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out for this year. And right now I'm starting to getting like the jitters, because racing starts for me in March is the Tennessee National, of course.
Ooh, coming around the corner.
First race of the year is the hardest and the scariest race. So I'm kind of battling recently, like, okay, like, am I prepared enough? Am I overtraining in the strength department and not riding enough? And at the same time, you don't want to train for downhill too early because it is such a high risk sport that, like, you don't want to get hurt before, the race season starts. So it's like trying to find that balance of getting your training in without compromising your health. And so I'm at that weird moment now where I'm like, oh my goodness, it's 2 months away. And I'm like, oh, am I trained up enough? And how am I doing? Like, where do I stand? And it's just all those things going into the first race of the season. So that's kind of what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah, coming into it. And I think you're probably not alone. I'm not in that race world, but I can only assume that your competitors are also in the same boat. Wondering, is it too early to train DH now? I don't want to get injured, but are they putting in the time? Have they moved to a new area of high altitude like you? Have they cut out distractions? How dedicated are they? How bad do they want it? Obviously, you're showing all the signs that you want it. So I don't know if it's going to be Cat 1 that you're going to destroy, or if you're going to tick up to the pros. Are you allowed to share anything that you might be doing in that arena?
I will say that I will know more in a couple months. Again, it is so hard to say because the ladies, the competition, especially at the national level, I mean, they're so good. And I'm trying to strike the balance of like seeing if my times are like mid-pack pro women. And that's probably the point where I'll make the decision. But I'll probably know more in a few months. But my goal that I have been telling, my partners that I work with and those who support me, my goal is to elevate to the pro category by the end of the year.
Oh man, knocking on the door.
That's what I'm fighting for.
Knocking on the door.
That's what I'm fighting for.
That is awesome. I can't wait to follow it and see. And Brie, as far as your pack, the people that you ride with, train with, that are helping you get ready for the race season, I know Sammy, Rock, Dirt, and Bones. Like, you've been riding with him quite a bit, and what an epic person to ride with. What a great trail builder. So shout out to him. But are there other folks that are helping you along as well? I mean, that alone is pretty world class.
He's pretty great. And he's the one who's actually opened up the doors to all the free riding and really pushes me in different ways. Like it's so humbling because the stuff that he's building is incredible. And he actually built me. Oh God, yeah, I cannot hang. But he did build me a little trick jump last weekend, so we were hitting that, and it was so fun to like get back into it. But man, like it's cool because it's teaching me like how to hit bigger jumps, and the lips that he's building for the jumps that I can do are pretty tall. Like, I think the one that we just did was about 9 feet tall. So just like getting used to that feeling will help me later on. And I think that, I'm planning on doing Crankworks this year. I'm still kind of waiting to see when the national championships are going to be scheduled.
Yeah.
Looking at you, USA Cycling. Like,
yes.
Let's go.
Yeah, release it.
But once I know those dates, like I'll know if I'm going to do Crankworks, but my plan is to do downhill, air DH, and dual slalom. And then I've really enjoyed learning tricks and just like a whole different side of mountain biking. So There's one particular trick that I have in mind, and if I can nail it this year, which is my goal, I'm not going to say too much beyond that. But if I can nail this particular trick, then I would love to do crank work speed and style in 2024.
Damn, that is awesome. I could only imagine. I could only imagine what that trick might be. Brie, let's head over to the chat real quick. You had some
Sure.
questions. A lot of people in the audience that are wanting to engage with Miss Brie. We have Australia in the house, New Zealand in the house, Miami in the house. Somebody wanted to find out if you can clear Large Marge. Trail Pimp is asking, can you clear Large Marge at Summit?
Large Marge. Which one's Large Marge? Is that the one? I know Hot Donna. I don't know Large Marge.
Yeah,
is that the Moon Booter, maybe?
Yes, the same geo as the Moon Booter at Whistler that they brought in, that big tabletop.
Yes, I ended up clearing that like the last day of the season, and it was terrifying.
Nice.
That was the first time that I have seen a whip that big, and I remember the first time I went up to it, I was like, whoa, like I went up and then I immediately went backwards down because I was like, hell no.
Oh, that's so
I
funny.
didn't know it was called that.
Yeah,
I just thought it was a Moon Booter.
Large Marge. I know somebody had told me that it was the same geo as the Moon Booter at Whistler on A-Line. And so I've heard both Moon Booter and Large Marge, but yeah, I mean, that just goes to show how big that one is. It's big. Lauren out of Miami is saying, you ever get Katie Holmes' doppelganger?
I do.
Yes.
I do. Actually back in my, party days, I was very hungover having breakfast with a friend of mine, and I had like big sunglasses on, and he looked like, oh boy, what is his name? Tom Cruise. But a tall version. But he had a ball cap on and like glasses, and we're both just like dying trying to eat breakfast. And there was a woman across the way whose jaw was on the floor because she thought it was Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. So yeah, I get that often.
That's awesome, man. That's got to be fun. When people do that, you're probably like, I wonder what they're thinking. Are they thinking that right now?
Yeah.
Oh, Nick MTB Nick is saying, what happens if you fall? Going back to the whole canyoneering.
Oh, canyoneering. You don't.
Yeah.
It depends. So typically if you're in a canyon that's got a lot of potholes where it's like big pots of water, and you're in a waterfall, typically you'll rig your rope so it's a certain feet short, just so you don't get tangled up in the waterfall as you're trying to get released from the rope. So sometimes you just like fall into the water. But one of my best friends, he actually had a canyoneering accident and ended up getting a leg amputated. So you don't fall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you
Jeez,
don't fall. It's if you follow the consequences are very high.
Yeah, no coming back. So you got to really pick your moves very wisely.
Don't let go of your brake hand.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. MTV. We know the answer to this, but this is for Santa Cruz out there. Brie, do you have a DH bike?
I do. I currently ride a Santa Cruz V10.
You hear that, Santa Cruz? You hear that, Santa Cruz?
I do.
Going back to when you were at Summit by yourself, MTB Nick saying, yes, he can relate. He actually went to the first time at Summit. He was also by himself. Ride with Kiefer is saying, sounds like my daughter. You're inspiring other girls and dads to see their women killing it. MTB Nick saying, party wave to Westridge.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your favorite combo, or what do you like to ride there?
I love that. I do. But I will say that, oh my gosh, what do I call it? Average Joe's. The small jump line. That one has my heart.
Oh,
that's when Blue Steel.
Yeah.
That's when I learned how to throw tricks. So that one, Blue Steel has my heart, but
so fun. Blue Steel is so fun.
Lap and party wave and Westridge. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. I'm out there trying to get my guts up to go from Blue Steel to Party Wave to
You got it.
Westridge.
I believe in you.
Thank you. Trail Pimp out of Lake Tahoe area is saying, "Do you ride Snow Valley Bike Park?"
Love Snow Valley. You
Yeah.
know, those guys work really hard over there. The dirt is not great for building, but I really do enjoy riding Snow Valley because it is a little bit more unpredictable. But they also open up sooner than Summit and stay open later than Summit. So um, I really have a strong appreciation for Snow Valley Bike Park.
I love Snow Valley too. And I don't know if it's a secret, but you can hit the lift empty almost every time. Just go down and back up, down and back up. Laps upon laps upon laps. That is so fun. Yes, Snow Valley. Shout out to Spencer and the squad out there for making some epic trails. Which leads me to a small section here I wanted to touch upon real quick. You had said that how mountain biking helps you face fears. And sometimes you don't overcome those fears and you do things scared. And that's cool because you're careful. It gives you the fuel to do it, but it gives you the awareness to stay safe. One of those fears you just overcame through the skill of overcoming fear was a recent trip to Colombia, yes?
Yes, I just came back from Colombia 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. And I had never been out of the US before except for Canada, which I'm from upstate New York, so it doesn't count. And Tijuana, which I'm like lived in San Diego, so that
San
also
Diego
doesn't
South.
count. So, but yeah, that was my first time like flying to another country, and it was a incredible experience. By day, I am senior manager of program delivery. So I work at a digital ad agency. And so basically, I am just the liaison, the person that gets everybody together, and we manage a team of analysts and strategists and engineers and visual designers and UX designers to come up with some really great work. And right now I've been focusing on some Google products for the last couple of years. But most of our team is in Colombia. So I was able to go see them in real life for the first time. And it was such an incredible experience. And one of the folks there is an avid mountain biker as well. So we were able to go out to some of the local trails in Bogota, and we went to a place called National Park. And it's actually really incredible because I never realized like how challenging it was for them to get bikes out there. And it's almost more expensive than it is for us because most of the bikes are coming from the US. So
Oh, wow.
I mean, they hooked me up. I mean, we were on, older bikes and older components, and it was just kind of super humbling. And these guys are ripping through like roots and rocks, and we had to do a river crossing and a tree crossing, and
dang.
Because the rains had been, I guess we got perfect weather that week, but the rains had kind of like flooded the river, and one of the trees ended up uprooting. So yeah, it was just really incredible being able to explore the city there. And it's such a beautiful place, and it kind of blew my mind that it was kind of unsafe where we were, and it was always like you got to always travel in groups. But after that, we went to Medellin, and Medellin's a beautiful city as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing when the Monserrate downhill races and Bogota, because I would absolutely love to go back and participate in that.
Wow, that's cool. What would you say the terrain is like there? Is it completely different than anything you've ridden in the US, or is it similar to something?
It reminded me of the East Coast riding because it is so green and so lush there. So it was just a lot of roots, some off-camber moments and rocky. It wasn't very steep where we were. I don't think we actually went to anything that was really, I know there's some like pretty amazing trails in Colombia, but this was just something that was close to our office and where we were staying. But it kind of reminded me of East Coast riding.
Okay, cool. Rudy, rocky, kind of gnar, super lush and green.
It was so green. I mean,
Oh, wow.
beautiful.
That's awesome. I've always wondered because I heard Spencer talking about Colombia, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's like. Another question here from Octodad out of New Zealand. He's asking, and he's
Oh,
asking
New
this in the
Zealand.
future. Yeah, he's in New Zealand. He says, ask Brie what her favorite World Cup track is.
Wow. So I have never ridden or raced in a World Cup track yet. So I don't know which one my favorite one is, but I will represent Snowshoe in West Virginia. So
There you go. Snowshoe, West Virginia by Brie.
I'll just
MTB Rating saying, you female MTB racer / ripper. We are in
let's
YouTube
go.
heaven. Thank you, people. Thank you, Craig. That is so funny. Craig also saying, just FaceTime my pops for a birthday screwball shot with him. And now I'm here with y'all. Happy birthday, Craig's
Happy
dad.
birthday.
That is awesome. Let's see. We also have, there's another question here. I want to say, oh, I got to put this up here for you. Miami mountain bike Q&A. Johnny Yu is saying she is amazing. And then Craig says, thank you, Johnny. Okay. Trick question here. Mountain bike Q&A out of Miami is saying, is Brie working on a backflip? Question mark.
Good question.
This could be the Cranksworks edition.
Great question.
Yeah.
Another great question.
Are we staying on that one? Okay, we'll get off of that question, but that tells us all we need to know. But there's a lot of great tricks out there, and maybe we'll see Brie at Crankworks on a TV close to you. Burrell Bikes out of Idaho is saying, hey, is she looking for a bike sponsor? And Burrell Bikes, this is Christian, the owner of the bike company. So are you looking for a bike sponsor at the moment?
I currently do not have a frame sponsor. So that is, there are some conversations happening, although not confident that it's going to happen in the near future. So currently I am not partnered with any frame sponsor.
Gotcha. Trail Pimp out of Tahoe is saying, hey, time for a cap for Core 4? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, although I think Brie likes the Santa Cruzes from what I've seen. And Trail Pimp is also saying that is a sick V10.
She's a beast. Currently 27.5. I'm considering going up to getting some different lowers to put a 29 on the front. So I think I'll probably be a little bit faster if I had a bigger wheel in the front. So that's probably what I'll do changes wise for 2023.
Mullet, ride the mullet. Oh, she's going MX. And Burrell hitting the chat again. He says, hey, Mark, what size trail bike does she need and what kind of specs does she like? So, hey, you may have a trail bike. I will connect you guys on the back end of the show and you guys can talk. But we may have some support here if you're interested. This will be very cool. So that's coming out of Boise, Idaho. I think that is the main questions here, but I also know that you had a few questions on your Instagram.
Oh yeah. Let me just double check. I think we covered most of them. Yeah, I think it was mostly around the fear and what I do for work, which again, I am very grateful that I have the opportunity to work remote so I can still do my job, but also travel for bikes, which has been great. But from the time that we started to current time, my post is no longer available to see the responses. So I hope I covered everybody's questions. And if I didn't, feel free to come find me.
Yes, exactly. No, those were great. I mean, the whole thing that you're doing, everything that you're doing is very inspiring, Brie. And I love being able to catch you in between race seasons to get a chance to kind of highlight your story. And I love everything that you're doing, how dedicated you are to the sport, and having you as a female mountain biker, female racer who is just smashing it out there. So thanks for being on the show. For people who want to hear more about what you're doing, to follow your story, to follow you in the season, where can they follow you out there, Brie?
So this year, I'm going to be doing the USDH series. So that's going to be Tennessee National, Mountain Creek, and the Fox US Open. I'll also be doing national championships in July, Crankworks in July, and then gotta represent home doing the Summit Downhill Series and the Straight Acres Dual Slalom. So that's my plan for right now. I think it's about 8 or 9 total races this season, so it's a perfect balance of for me not getting too burned out at the end of the year. So
That's really good, and still holding down a full-time job at the whole
yes,
the whole time, all the
a
while.
very full-time job.
Now, and where can people follow you on social media? Where will they follow your story?
So I am primarily just on Instagram. So you can just look up my name. It's Brie Aseltine, Brie Aseltine. And I'm trying to kind of get into TikTok, but I'm not very there yet. I always just forget about it. So Instagram is the primary way to find me.
And for closing, for women that are coming up into the sport, I know you're paving the way for a lot of folks. I remember talking to you and saying that you kind of wanted to change the way things are kind of handed down to other women. What would you say to other women that are looking at getting into racing? What is some kind of wisdom that you can pass down to make them feel like, okay, I could do this?
That's a great question.
Other
I
than
would
eat my dust.
say no, 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 no.
I'm teasing.
I would say just that, like, just do it. Figure out where you are. If it's something you're passionate about, take the leap. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be nervous. I have I have some friends who are, like I've ridden park with or whatever, and they wanted to start racing and kind of had to force them up a class because they're such good riders, but they just didn't have like that mental confidence yet. And it was really cool to see them grow. So um, I think for me, what I struggled with the folks that I had looked up to was that, races are really stressful, and luckily I'm able to, turn that on and turn it off. So typically I'm always just like kind of pumping up the other ladies and like trying to like find ways to distract from the nerves. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you can't get any more prepared than you are in that moment in time. There's literally nothing you can do that's going to make or break your race run from, a fitness or skill or experience or preparedness point of view, right? So you're up there, like, all you gotta, I mean, for me, I just, trust myself, focus on, what I have in front of me, hype up the ladies, and then as soon as, I'm probably like, 5 ladies back, I'll start getting back in the zone. And if there's anything that I need that day, that I need to remind myself, I always write notes on my handlebars
Oh,
or
that's a good
behind my
idea.
race plate and just say like, hey, like, eyes up, or if I'm not feeling like I'm tracking right, or if, there's something off, I just write myself a note. And that's the thing that I focus on before I drop in. And I would just say, find that thing that you really want to focus on, and let that be what's in your mind, and not like the nerves or the fear or anything.
Yeah, stay focused on like the most important piece. Yeah, let all that other kind of noise happen, but dwindle it. Feel it, but try to let it go. That's not the reason why you're there, is to just be scared. You're there to
Yeah.
eyes up, be in the moment. Yeah, I love that. That's so cool. I dig it. Brie,
Cool.
anything else in closing that you'd like to share with anybody, or do you think you felt like you had a chance to share it?
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Mark. And
Yeah.
this is such a awesome experience. I don't usually tell anything personal on social media, so this is the first time that I've actually shared my story. So I appreciate the forum and the opportunity. It's been great.
Oh, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm a fan of Brie Aseltine. I think all of you are too. I see a lot of people saying follows, follows, follows. People are following you now. Thank you all so much for jumping on the segment podcast with Brie and I. Good luck to you, Brie, this season. And yeah, we'll see you out on the trail very soon. And keep an eye on her, Brie Aseltine, at Instagram. See you all later.
Thank you.